We are opening our online meeting on the outcomes of the survey on the contribution of civil society organizations to human capital development in Albania. And let me say right away that today we will have simultaneous interpretation, English-Albanian. You will see on the screen how to select the language channel on the display of Zoom. So you have interpretation button on your lower panel. So please select either English or Albanian for the language in which you would like to listen to the discussions today. And if you are lucky to speak both languages, just don't select any. So I will give you a few seconds to select the channel. And by the way, although you see the slides in English, you can access the slides also in Albanian through the chat. So our technical producer has sent a link through the chat, so you can access the Albanian version. So while you are selecting the channel, I will present myself. My name is Nadezhda. I work in the ETF governance and quality assurance team, and I will be chairing the meeting today. So before we start, let me just explain you a few things on the technical side. So first of all, please turn on and off microphones while you are not speaking. But we are inviting all of you to leave your videos on so we can actually meet each other online. The chat will be an important tool for communication today. So please use it for questions, comments. You can write either in Albanian or in English, as you prefer. And we will have a dedicated time for questions. And in your questions, please also write who you wish to address the question to. We have one more request to you. So could you please modify your login name so that we could see your name, surname, and organization? Yeah, it will just help all of us to know who is who, and it will also help the technical producer to assign you to breakout rooms during the group discussion session. You can easily do it by clicking on participants, then on your name, and then on modify your name. So I hope that everyone managed to connect and can listen in the preferred language. Now let's pass on to the opening session of our meeting. So I will stop sharing my screen. Okay, and so I would like to first pass the floor to Diana Sorensen, the Deputy Minister of Finance and Economy of Albania, for opening the meeting. Over to you, Diana.
Thank you very much. It is, again, a great pleasure to participate in today's discussion on the engagement of civil society organization in skills development at large, and more specifically when it comes to formal and non-formal learning. It is not the first time, obviously, that we are in a platform where we engage with civil society. In the implementation of the National Employment and Skills Strategy, we have made a point for continuous engagement with civil society for the monitoring of the implementation of the strategy. But I would like to highlight the fact that from the perspective of the Ministry responsible for labor and skills development, I think the engagement with civil society organization goes beyond the consultative role and beyond the monitoring aspects of engagements with civil society. So again, as I already mentioned, we have made a point to engage with civil society at least annually on the monitoring of the implementation of the strategy. Some of the main elements, I think, that go beyond the monitoring bit is continuously liaising with civil society organization organizations on specific policies related to employment and skills development in the country. And I think in the past few years, there has been a great interest, at least from select civil society organizations, to engage in the dialogue, especially those organizations that represents the interest of specific groups. Here in particular, I would like to highlight civil society organizations that work mainly with Roma and Egyptian communities, civil society organizations that work in the area of disability and the integration in the labor market of people with disabilities, and as well as NGOs that relate to women-related issues. So again, we've seen great interest of continuous dialogue from these types of organizations that target these specific groups. But I think what is even more important is that we have seen an increase in the quality of policy proposals that are coming from civil society continuously. And I think once you engage in that continuous dialogue, also the quality of the discussion improves quite significantly. A third area where we are working very closely with civil society is also to consider civil society organizations as potential service providers when it comes to skills development in Albania. Many of you are probably already aware that with the approval of the Employment Promotion Law of 2019, there is now the possibility of public institutions contracting out training and employment services to different organizations, specifically civil society organizations. And I think there are two elements of learning here that we need to emphasize. First of all, civil society organizations do have a vast experience in the implementation of skills development measures, and there is a lot of learning and that we can take from whatever pilots have been tested out on the ground. And the second element is there is obviously lots of room for upscaling those types of successful measures that we have seen from civil society. Another element that I would like to highlight is, I mean, in government, there is, again, we have social services, we have programs that target the different vulnerabilities of the individual. What we often struggle with is bringing all these types of services together in support of the individual at the same time. And I think civil society organizations as service providers have the upper hand with that regard, because they very often can accompany the individual not only with skills development initiatives and specific training programs that they offer, but more importantly, all the psychosocial support that the individuals from vulnerable groups might require that maybe public institutions are not as able to provide them all at the same time. So again, for us, it's very important that the interactions between government and civil society happens in all these three fronts that I highlighted. I look forward to today's presentation of the findings of the study, but more importantly on the discussions that will ensue with 50+ participants that I see are currently registered to follow today's discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Diana Sorensen. We are very honored to have you here today. And I am now passing the opening floor to Andy Kananai, the Executive Director of the Agency for the Support of Civil Society of Albania, for his opening remarks.
Duhet të falenderoj që në fillim bashkëorganizatorët të Fondacionin Evropian të Trajnimit për studimin, për rritjen e kapaciteteve njerëzore në këtë situatë shumë të veçantë në gjithë botën. Dhe para pandemisë kanë ndikuar gjithë shqiptarët, por neve historikisht besoj që edhe vendet e tjera të lindjes kanë pasur një vështirësi për të përshtatur për mënyrën se si kapacitetet njerëzore janë përshtatur në botën e re. Në një farë mënyrë doja të thosha që neve po kalojmë periudhë tranzicioni për gati 30 vjetësh dhe sapo ishim përshtatur në botën e re, ne duhet të kalojmë një botë tjetër e cila është ajo e pandemisë. Megjithatë duhet të them me një lloj entuziazmi që metodat e reja, ato të trajnimit dhe mënyrat e reja për të përgatitur njerëzit për botën e re, të paktën për organizatat e shoqërisë civile kanë funksionuar. Kështu që kjo është një perspektivë shumë e mirë e cila unë mendoj dhe isha shumë entuziast që ishim bashkë organizues të këtij takimi për të qenë gati në një farë mënyrë për këtë botën e re e cila për neve është akoma më e re sa për organizatorët, bashkëorganizatorët e tjerë. Kështu që ju falenderoj dhe mirëpresim në vazhdim të gjitha bashkëpunimet.
Thank you very much, Andy Kananai. And I'm now passing the floor to my colleague, Hugues Moussi, the ETF's Head of Systems Performance and Assessment Unit. Over to you, Hugues.
Thank you, Nadezhda, and good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to open this session, especially being accompanied by the Deputy Minister and the head of the agency. Thank you for taking part in this session. Just a few words, maybe, at the beginning about ETF. So ETF is a European Union agency working in the field of human capital development, lifelong learning, also VET, which was core of our work at the very beginning. So the mission, so to say, of ETF is, I would say, to develop knowledge and expertise in those fields, and also very importantly, to provide policy advice to the partner countries with which we work, and which are countries of the EU neighborhood. So among those countries, of course, Albania, which is a very important country. ETF has a long story with Albania, and we have over the years developed strong and robust relationships and links of cooperation. In the past years, for example, we have worked with Albanian authorities and Albanian stakeholders in the strengthening VET teacher training, the developing or redesigning the Albanian qualification framework, and, for example, the evolution of skills in the energy sector. So you see, this is a wide range of various collaboration. We also work, and it is very important, on the governance, more particularly of the VET sector, which is a very key element and one for which we are gathered here today. As ETF is moving, as was said, from a more strictly VET approach to an overall and at large lifelong learning approach, the importance of involving, and it was, recalled so strongly by the Deputy Minister in her introductory note, the importance to involve more strongly civil society organization has emerged, but not only emerged, has proven to be a key and crucial element of governance of lifelong learning at large. And this is really one of the key elements upon which is founded the rationale for this survey. So actually we conducted this survey in 6 countries, so Albania, of course, Jordan, Serbia, Tajikistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan in the past month as a first round. And we are now sharing the findings of this survey first with you in Albania, and it's a very important step. I would like to thank here, but particularly the agency who has made it possible for us to share its network and also organize this walking session that we have this morning. So a warm thank you. Thank you very much also to the Deputy Minister, who very kindly opened this session with very important remarks on the role and the importance of collaborating with the civil society organization. I think really aligned perfectly with the approach that we do have here at ETF. So now, without waiting, I will hand it over to you, Nadezhda, so we can dive more into the content of this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugues. And thank you again to all the opening speakers for setting the scene for the work today. I would also like to introduce and welcome the other speakers and moderators of today's meeting. So I'm welcoming Entela Kaleshi, the national expert and the author of the Albanian CSO report. Hello, Entela. I'm also welcoming Siria Taurelli, the senior specialist in governance and lifelong learning of the European Training Foundation. Hi, Siria. I'm also welcoming Romain Boitard, the ETF country coordinator for Albania. Welcome, Romain. And I am welcoming also Stelios Karagiannis, the ETF expert in statistics and data analysis. So now let me briefly take you through the agenda for the coming couple of hours. Just a second, I will share my screen. Okay. So in the first part of the meeting, we will have 3 presentations. So Andy Kananai will present the development and perspectives of the CSO work in Albania. Then Siria Taurelli will speak about the objectives and the methodology of CSO's survey. And finally, Entela Kaleshi will present the findings of the survey. And this round of presentations will be followed by questions and answers session. So please do not forget to use the chat for questions. At that point, we will have a 5-minute break, and then we will split into 3 breakout rooms for a group discussion. And so these group discussions will be dedicated to a theme from the survey, and we will have 30 minutes to discuss, to express opinions and share our feedback. After that, we will get back together into the plenary, and we will hear from the reporters of each of the 3 sessions on what the key reflections were in the groups. At that point, our colleague Stelios Karagiannis will present a cross-country analysis from the countries where the survey was implemented. So, you will be able to position and confront Albania with other countries. And this will take us to the final part of the meeting, where we have allocated some time for an open discussion. And in the very final slot, Siria Taurelli will conclude the meeting and will inform on the next steps. So this is our plan for today. And I'm now passing the floor to Andy Kananai from the Agency for the Support of Civil Society for taking us through the latest developments and future plans. So over to you.
Dear Nadeza, can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Yes, much better. Actually, the presentation will be made by me. This is Arian. Okay. So maybe there was a bit of confusion during the agenda, and I'll make the presentation in Albanian. Yeah, so I'll continue.
Thank you, Arian.
You're welcome. Atëherë, falenderojmë bashkë organizatorët.
We want to thank the co-organizers
për këtë mundësi që
for this opportunity
dhe për studimin që kanë bërë
given to us and for the study they made about the situation of civil society organizations in Albania in human capital development, which involves many aspects of support to various communities,
për trajnimet që të mundshme afatgjate ose të shkurtra,
long-term or short-term training,
mbështetjes ndaj bashkëpunimit midis shoqatave të shoqërisë civile si dhe aktorëve që janë qeveritar lokal ose të qeverisë qendrore.
local or central government stakeholders. First of all, let me tell you that for us as an agency, our main objective is to support the SCOs so that, and this was from the start of our work since 2009, so the agency has been the only stable actor to financially support and technically support the CSOs. And we operate by doing this with calls for proposals, and we distribute a budget which is almost the same each year. During the last 3 years, the agency has strived to be effective in its work and collaborative with actors either from the civil society or non-civil society actors from the local central government, and also with our partners, mainly European partners, but also partners from non-EU countries. Now, going back to our topic about the assistance given to the development of the human capital in Albania, let me make a brief overview about the last calls for proposals. So if the organizers could share the PowerPoint on the screen. So is it possible to have the PowerPoint presentation on the screen? It says in English.
Yeah, I'm asking our technical producers if they could share the slides. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, if you go to the next page, please. Okay. Mbështetja jon përveç prioriteteve të tjera,
our support, besides the other priorities, has the priorities related to the study of the topic we are discussing today. And these are to support social services activities, to support initiatives for the integration of civil society, support European integration initiatives, support psychosocial activities, particularly in this situation, in the Covet period or post-Covet situation, and also support innovative initiatives. We organize the calls each year by which we distribute the allocated budget to our agency. I will make a short description of the last 3 years. It is the 12th call that dates in April 2019. We managed to support financially 14 SCOs to the total of 33.1 million lek. So currently, our budget is around 99 million new lek, or in euro, around 600,000 euro per year. So I want to tell you the importance, because we have allocated 1/3 of our budget. We also take care to ensure that extension of projects includes many cities and many areas of Albania. So not only Tirana, because Tirana is the main area of activity in Albania, but we find it important, this geographic element, this the role of civil societies in other cities, and particularly in small cities where they have less support. The field of activities that we have supported during 2019 intended it was intended activities for social activities, civil society integration. So social development, social services, civil society integration initiatives, so cooperation between SCOs with the local authorities or the central government, and also the initiatives that these groups had in cooperation with target groups. They are target groups which that they focus on. Also the initiatives for European integration, or to say to bring the EU standards closer to the communities where the organizations operate. So this was one of the objectives of the 12th call for proposals. To go into more detail, let me mention the youth project as a more active part of the community to define strategies for a sustainable community development. So the goal of this was to have an active youth and ensure accountability and transparency of the local government. So to increase the role of the youth in the decision making and also the role of local governments in accountability. Another project was Dare to Make the Change, and its goal was to encourage the engagement of youth in improving education, promote entrepreneurship and employment of youth. The third project is the project to defend and guarantee the rights and re-socialization, reintegration, and rehabilitation of youth in conflict with the law. So besides the mainstreaming initiatives, we deal also with initiatives that involve small marginalized groups that are at the corner, let's say, or left somewhat aside by the society. And those youth who are part of conflicts have had a youth with problems with the law, and they have gone through a rehabilitation process through the authorities that have dealt with them. So it came as a need for the intervention of CSOs to ensure that these individuals in conflict with the law are re-socialized. This is the support of CSOs. One of our projects involves also the awareness raising of the society, particularly of youth and teachers, to ensure equal training of minors or youth who have been in conflict with the law, who have been either defendants or victims. So during the teaching at school and outside it. So another thing is to ensure protection, to ensure participation of youth in budget allocation, and we have then also to increase the capacities of youth to engage in entrepreneurship by an integrated approach in managing cultural tourism and protection of cultural inheritance. There is also another aspect about fight against corruption in higher education, because corruption in Albania is present and it is something that may happen and happens in many areas. And one of the objectives of ours as an agency, so besides these projects that we support, we are also part of the international instruments in combating corruption, and we are very active in the initiatives in this field. So the project I just mentioned aims to support students to prevent and to report corruptive acts in order to increase transparency and efficiency in the higher education. So we are talking about universities. The other project is about the social civil society development encouragement to bring Albania's integration to the EU closer. So the objective was to increase the number of youth participating in the projects of these SEOs and to raise awareness in order to distribute or proliferate the EU standards. Now, the projects that I'm going to present to you today were financed for social services. So one project is about early intervention as a possibility for the development of disabled children and her family. So it aimed to strengthen the families of children with disabilities in order to improve also the parental skills of their parents and to reduce the sense of isolation, stress, and frustration from the fact that they do have a child with disabilities. Children with disabilities are not simply a problem in itself, but sometimes they feel alone in coping with these difficulties. But these difficulties have also are seen also these difficulties go through also the families and the communities. So we see the intervention not only in the individual but also in the people surrounding these children. After 2019, as you know, it was 2020, the pandemic year, which for us as an agency was a very big challenge, not only because of the work, but also because the pandemic did restrict, did limit the capacities of the government to assist the civil society or to assist us as an agency for the support that we would give to the civil society. Because as you know, before the pandemics, we had the earthquake situation, for which a big investment is needed for the recovery. So part of the budget of our agency went for the post-earthquake recovery in the areas that suffered the earthquake. This was another challenge for us because we had to operate in a very with a very with a much lower budget than we usually had, and also we had to operate in a situation where many projects had to change their formats. Many organizations had to be prepared how to assist and how their target groups. So I mean, in 2020, this was a very difficult year, but nevertheless, it was a year that we learned a lot about how we can operate in unusual situations or in a new normality, as we call it. The agency has changed its priorities in financing the project. So by reflecting the situation created by the pandemic, during this period, the agency has worked strongly to support the human capital development sector. We have given support for the implementation of projects in social services to vulnerable groups, such as providing psychological therapy, online training of medical personnel, and other innovative initiatives to improve the created situation. So the total funds allocated by the agency was 16.885 million lek. So,
Arian, may I please remind you about time?
Yes.
Do you think you will be able to conclude in maximum 2 minutes?
Yes, I will. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
as I mentioned, the agency has operated with a much lower budget, so 16 million lek. The projects were located not only in Tirana, but also in other cities. So to be clear, let me tell you briefly that the project about the care and assistance during the pandemic. We have provided legal and psychosocial assistance to the vulnerable groups of persons in need and the projects. So what we managed to support were in the municipalities Libraș, Culture, Debol, Rogojin, and Bulcis. So the project on psycho-emotional treatment with the individual in the focus was in Tirana Tours Leja, and it intended to offer psychosocial services for the post-COVID situation to the groups in need. A project for strengthening voluntarism for innovative initiatives to improve the situation due to COVID, and it extended in 5 cities: Tirana, Durrës, Shkodër, Durrës, Elbasan. And also the project about the campaign Wear the Mask. It was an online project and extended across all Albania, and it aimed to raise awareness among the people to follow the instructions of professionals and wear the mask. Also, the project for the protection, education, and awareness raising of minors of Roma and Egyptian communities to respect the COVID rules. It was in Tirana, and it aimed to ensure better protection, education, and awareness raising of minors of Roma and Egyptian communities in respecting the rules during the situation created by COVID. We also have some other projects which, due to the change in time, I'm not mentioning, but you have all these in the PowerPoint, which will be distributed, I believe, at the end of this session. Nevertheless, to wrap it up, let me tell you that our work continues and we are engaged in our objectives, which is a document, Problems with the Internet. Problem that was a document that was adopted by the government and the Council of Ministers to improve the situation of civil society in Albania, which means to regulate the legal framework, how the associations can be registered and how they can operate in Albania, and to increase the responsibility of each institution that deals with civil society organizations. So almost all state institutions, any line ministry or agency that is subordinate to that ministry, which works with the civil society. I believe we will have time for further discussions and welcome the questions. So thank you for the allocated time.
Thank you.
Now I will give the floor back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erion. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. The slides will be shared with all the participants. And I would also like to remind everyone that you can make questions to all our speakers. So please use the chat, the questions or comments also. So we will be taking all of them a bit later. And now I would like to pass the floor to Siria Taurelli from the European Training Foundation for presenting the objectives and the methodology of the survey. Siria, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And Nadia will help me by sharing her screen with my presentation. The survey was conducted upon initiative of European Training Foundation, and it's really a pleasure to be here today and discuss the findings of the survey in Albania together with you, and particularly with those who have been available and kind enough to spare their time in answering our questions, our many questions, I have to say. But that was for a good reason. And we actually launched the survey, ETF launched the survey on CSOs. We are using this acronym a lot today, civil society organizations, in context of a global agenda, a global agreement based on the Sustainable Development Goals, based on international consensus, including European Union consensus, that education and training policies must be framed by lifelong learning. So the way we approach learning in life is not confined or limited to the early years of our own personal development, but it is a lifelong continuous process. And that also means that the consensus globally is that non-formal and informal learning is also very important. As important as formal education and training. So what continues after the school, the education in the school period, is as formative and as necessary as the first period of education and training. The second reason why we launched the survey is that if we all agree that lifelong learning is our context, is really what defines the policies on education and training. This also implies the recognition that there is a wide range of actors that intervene. So when we talk about lifelong learning, we think, of course, to formal education, teachers, principals, ministries, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Labor, vocational education and training. But we also think to other actors that play a role to support the non-formal and informal learning of people. So this recognition, it's an important step, and it will be also at the heart of our discussion today, together with the presentation of the actual findings from the survey. There was a third why for our survey, which was COVID. It was already mentioned several times. I don't need to repeat that, but if we consider the COVID not only as a moment of emergency or a specific crisis, but also as an accelerator of trends that were already pre-existing, it is very important also to look on how the organizations and the actors are able, more or less able to react to this situation of acceleration of change. So in the next slide, I will then focus on the specific objectives of the survey. And the specific objectives are that in order to explore the role of the civil society as an actor in lifelong learning, we also need to understand more and learn more and collect evidence about the way they act, the type of activities they contribute to lifelong learning, in particular to in the sense of non-formal and informal learning, as well as support to employment. And we can call this lifelong learning or learning, continuous learning and support to employment as human capital development. Hugues Moussy explained us that this is really the core of the ETF intervention and a way of operating. So this human capital development takes together the learning dimension as well as the employability and employment dimension. So the second objective was really to see what happened during COVID. So what type of response? Was there a specific response to the pandemic? Yes, no, to which extent? And last but not least, also what we're trying to do through the survey is to collect the feedback about your own effectiveness. So we have conducted a very small sample of additional open interviews with people who benefit from the services of the civil society, just to have a hint, a flavor about their level of benefits and how do they see the outcomes of their participation in your activities. That was the objective. The survey was conducted in 6 countries. Hugo mentioned these countries. Albania is the first one. We also have the survey in Jordan, Serbia, in Tajikistan, in Ukraine, and in Uzbekistan. So one added value, allow me to say, of this research, of this study, is that it covers these countries, and therefore we have been able to draw some general conclusions about diversity and commonalities across the countries, and my colleague Stelios will tell us more about that later today. So this is a little additional surprise we are bringing to this workshop. The civil society organization, the CSOs that were interviewed, were those active in the field of non-formal learning, informal learning, and support to employment. So CSO, we heard already from the agency, they can cover many more sectors. They can cover civic engagement, they can cover human rights. This survey is in that sense very much led by a thematic focus, human capital development, and therefore only the CSO active in this sector were considered eligible to participate. And the way to implement the survey was to address one interview only per organization. So it means that the number of interviews in each country corresponds to the number of organizations that have been available to dedicate time to participate to the interview. More specifically, then, if we move to the actual, to the very content of the survey. So, what type of actions are the CSO conducting or implementing in the field of human capital development? And we addressed these, we defined the boundaries of the type of actions that were considered to be related to human capital development in the way you see reflected in the slides. Namely, first of all the activities that were aimed at develop people skills through non-formal and informal learning. This could be addressed to young people, adult people, male, female. So with no specific selection of participating groups. So to everybody, and we wanted to know actually where is the focus in terms of beneficiary groups in each and every country. The second aspect through which we defined the activities of the CSOs were services that link learning to employment. So facilitating the transition from school to work, support the implementation of internships for specific group of people, or advising, providing career guidance, orientation to people, give advice on personal development. The third aspect in which we broke down these human capital development services was about awareness raising and advocacy. So not only the direct implementation of activities with different groups of people, but also raising the voice, uniting the voice of different organizations to speak to the government. We heard also from the agency that this is happening in Albania, and in that sense, we can only congratulate you to be so advanced in that sense. But advocacy is definitely also a very important aspect in human capital development, not through direct implementation, but through forming a culture of learning and a culture of employability among people as well as among government institutions. And last but not least, we also considered and asked questions to organizations whether they are engaged in creating knowledge, for example, through collection of data for purpose of monitoring, or collection of data for purpose of assessing training needs of different groups of people, sharing intelligence about the development of lifelong learning. So a variety of possible actions, which many of you will recognize because there were questions about that in the questionnaire. And the questionnaire, just as a reminder for those who haven't been lucky enough to take part on it, was made of 4 sections. So in the first section, we actually wanted to ask to explore and say, build a profile of the organization, what are the main characteristics and what are the main activities they address, and what are the implementation methods, what are the groups of people they mostly address.
Sorry, may I just remind you about time? Could you try to conclude in 1.5 minutes?
1.5 minutes. Oh, that's very tough. Okay, so the second part of the questionnaire was about the response due to the pandemic crisis. So to which extent the organization was able or was forced to react by adapting or changing some of the activities. The third area was about policy dialogue, and I cannot underline more the importance of it. And I just quote what Hugues said about the importance of, and also the deputy minister say about the place of civil society in the policy dialogue about education, training, lifelong learning. And the fourth part of the questionnaire was about the potential and what is your perception about the further potential for development of the organization, as well as potential for increasing or strengthening the role in the policy dialogue, or for making it more meaningful. So CSO in the survey, thank you, Nadia, this will be the last slide. As said, we focus only on those active in lifelong learning and support to employment, and in any of any form. So organizations that are non-governmental, community-based, they could be youth organizations, parents organizations, or more classical non-governmental organization. So there were no, say, distinction or preclusion in terms of the form of the organization, only that they would be active in the field of human capital development. So back to you, Nadia. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you very much, Siria. And now I would like to invite Entela Kaleshi to present the outcomes of the survey in Albania. So Entela, the floor is yours.
Hello Nadia, hello everyone. Përshëndetje të gjithëve. Është vërtet një kënaqësi
Hello
të jem
everyone.
këtu me
It's
ju
really a
sot
pleasure
për
to
të
be with you today to share with you
raportit
the
që ne kemi
findings
përgatitur
of
dhe
our
veçanërisht do të falenderoja të
survey
gjitha
in
ato
Albania. I'd like to
organizata
especially
të cilat
thank all those organizations which participated in this survey, those which dedicated their time to talking to us, consulting the findings, participating also in our focus groups. So really big thank you to them. Okay, I'm going to have my presentation in Albanian, being that most of the participants here are Albanian. Some of them took part in our survey, and I'm sure they would enjoy hearing the results. We have already distributed a draft report, but we will certainly have a final report soon. So let me do the presentation in Albanian. So this report, based on the methodology and instructions, includes some key findings which you will find in our final report. And this includes the profiles of CSOs, their response to COVID-19 and the activities CSOs had. They are all related with human capital development. It includes the main stakeholders they cooperate with, and feedback from CSOs on human capital development in the context of COVID-19. A few words about the profile of CSOs. Well, I have to mention that during the selection process, we identified a large number of CSOs working in Albania and contributing directly or indirectly, both at the local and central level, to human capital development. And this includes 160 organizations, and we looked at them based on the criteria Syria mentioned earlier. And we found that 41 of them, we studied their profile, and we contacted 41 of them, and 28 actually participated in our survey. What were the initial steps? This was a process that started in September and ended in December 2020. And the main steps were the creation of a database of CSOs, testing the questionnaire, developing the survey, analyzing the quantitative and qualitative, preliminary quantitative and qualitative data, and then the drafting of the report was the final step. We analyzed the profiles of CSOs in terms of several aspects, like their general profile, their human capital, their financial capital, the role of the CSOs in sustainable development goals, and beneficiaries. We also checked the location of these organizations. So out of all the participating organizations, 93 of them work at the local level. 71 of them are located in Tirana, which shows the reality actually of civil society in Albania, where Tirana is the mostly concentrated. 7 of them have coordinated at least one network in the country. 19 CSOs have participated in one or several networks or associations. They are members of one or several associations. We saw lack of partnership and cross-sectoral networking between CSOs in the country and abroad, and that was identified as a large need actually in this sector. It was only one organization which confirmed that they were part of a European network. Low participation in European and regional networks shows the need for institutional strengthening of CSOs. And this was, as I said, one of the main needs identified by this survey. Regarding their communication capacities, we see that a small number of CSOs have a dedicated website, and often it was not even updated. And this, we can see this with the Index of Sustainability of Civil Society Organizations for Albania, where we see that most of the CSOs do not communicate effectively because only a small number of CSOs have a dedicated staff for that. This survey explored the human capacities of CSOs regarding their employees, collaborators, and volunteers. Our findings show that a large percentage of CSOs have limited human resources. Other researches also show that they find it difficult to retain full-time staff, mostly because they are limited to project-based donations. Other studies show that volunteer work in Albania remains low. Likewise, the Albanian legislation does not hamper, but it does not stimulate participation in organization either. Regarding their financial capacities, their dependency is, quite high. Almost 93% of CSOs rely on donor funds. Some of them, 46%, rely on government funds, and a small percentage, about 21%, which rely on private donations or other forms of revenues. And this is for several reasons. Albanian CSOs lack organizational capacities, they lack resources to mobilize donations through fundraising activities. Only 29% of the surveyed of the respondents offer services as an alternative form of generating incomes through professional training, expertise, and usually these services are under the market price. As for alternative forms of incomes like social enterprises, CSOs are increasingly concerned about how they're treated by tax authorities, central government, and banks. They do not make the distinction between profitable and non-profitable activities. Government funding remains to be low, especially for local NGOs or CSOs. Regarding the specific role of CSOs in terms of sustainable development goals, our survey shows that all CSOs support SDGs to some extent or somehow. Most of the respondents support SDG 5, which is gender equality, SDG 8, decent jobs and economic growth, and SDG 10. In the meantime, 3 CSOs mentioned also SDG 12 as an additional form of support. It's important to note that this specific role of CSOs, which we need to explore, is supported and recognized further by all the stakeholders. Regarding the role of beneficiaries, we see that in compliance with their areas of support, beneficiaries, when it comes to skill development through informal, non-formal learning, includes youth, vulnerable youth, and women. There are 2 other groups, which include LGBTI and minorities. The findings of this survey show that most of the CSOs focus their activities on development of skills through non-formal learning for youth and advocacy. They reported other activities on skill development, which includes education, awareness, and support for promoting human rights, democracy, and volunteerism, promotion of skills and platforms for development through national contests, national skill contests. CSOs seem to be less focused on creating or using intelligent information for development skills or for employment, like collecting quantitative or qualitative data, independent analysis of data, formulation or drafting of advice or for policies. When asked about the content of their activities, when it comes to skill development through non-formal and informal learning and employment services, 75% of the CSOs said that they have secured support for technical skills like professional social skills, technical skills, digital skills, and other employment-related skills. 60% of the CSOs offer support on main competencies like learning, teamwork, leadership, communication, languages, public speaking, self-confidence, entrepreneurship, etc. 85% of the CSOs, of the respondents, publish their analysis, their research on their online communication, like their websites, Facebook, Instagram. They also admit that they are willing to share their work with stakeholders regarding the effective implementation of activities through non-formal or informal learning. CSOs listed these as the most effective ways. Non-formal training courses, support for informal learning through peers, self-learning, learning styles based on engagement and participation, motivating people to learn, as well as a mixed combination of traditional and digital forms of learning. What is important to mention is that these effective forms of learning are also in line with the activities of the respondents. Most of the respondents find classroom training centers or other similar environments as most effective. 64% consider on-the-job training as an effective way of learning, while 46% seem to be less favorite. Regarding the response to COVID-19, it's important to emphasize that the emergency situation led to lots of insecurity among people about their social and economic stability. The CSO sector had to face these insecurities. They had to decide whether to stop their activities in order to keep social distancing or modify their strategies so they could reach their intended beneficiaries. This was challenging. Only 7 CSOs said they had to change their beneficiaries when it comes to human capital development. In such cases, the decision was taken based on recommendations of based on their brainstorming. Some of them changed their priorities when it comes to human capital development. Only 4 CSOs acknowledged that they had to change their priorities and activities, and 21% of them changed them somehow. Those CSOs which had to change their human capital development activities in 2020, and that includes CSOs which change them somehow. They say they worked harder on non-formal learning for youth, strengthen informal learning for youth, and they also focused more on advocacy for young people, like promoting self-learning, peer learning, learning through personal experience. In the meantime, 89% of the respondents said they had used more online forms of learning compared to previous years. Various virtual classroom softwares like MS Teams, Google Classroom, etc. were mostly used. Other forms of communication synchronized with video like Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp, Facebook Live were also used, including other social media like Facebook groups, etc. They seem to be the most common used forms of communication. Regarding response to COVID-19, 96% of the respondents say they learned some short-term lessons in cases of emergencies or in cases of working under pressure. 89% of the respondents say they have learned long-term lessons. Most of the short-term lessons include adopting implementation methods, assessing emerging needs, offering new services, mobilizing new human, financial, and physical resources. Some of the strategic lessons learned in human capital development in response to the pandemic include the need to be innovative, both in terms of existing services and new services, offering new services, retrain staff and or volunteers, attract additional funds, cooperation with other organizations, improve organizational skills, increase expertise. They were also acknowledged as a need. Both results, the short-term and the long-term results, show the resilience of CSOs during the pandemic. Regarding the stakeholders involved in policy dialogue, 21.4% said they were often involved in the policy dialogue when it comes to formal, informal learning and employment services. 42% of them say, 35% declared they are regularly connected with the stakeholders and they report to the stakeholders, while the rest said they would have liked to have contributed. Out of the CSOs which report they are regularly connected, most of the reporting was for purposes of monitoring. And the respondents said that 83% are connected with education and training stakeholders, 61% with CSO fora and platforms, 55% with government institutions, and 55% with the National Employment Service. CSOs describe their role as a complementary. That was 19 CSOs, advisory, 6 CSOs, cooperative, 11, and alternative, 4 CSOs. There were also 11 CSOs which declared to be indifferent. They said, we don't inform the government, the government doesn't inform us either. That was their response. And let's look at the future. We explored information about CSOs which may represent an advantage compared to other organizations. 75% support effectiveness in education, training, and other learning processes. 64% improve the dialogue results. 42% identify the needs of different groups. As for the future, more than 53% of the respondents plan to strengthen their contribution to human capital development in terms of accessibility to formal, informal, and non-formal learning, inclusiveness, and the quality of opportunities for individuals to learn and to get a job. This survey explored also the perspectives of beneficiaries. 5 beneficiaries were contacted so we could see what they think about the usefulness of the work of CSOs in terms of human capital development. It is worth mentioning that all the respondents gave positive feedback on the work of CSOs. The beneficiaries emphasized particularly as positive peer learning, discussions of practical issues, interactive sessions, concrete examples, as well as practical work as something they really appreciate in the training they get. They also mentioned that this support, CSO support, has helped them get new perspectives regarding their skills and their career. options. Regarding training and follow-up support, beneficiaries gave concrete proposals about their ongoing learning and capacity building, like social learning, internship courses, peer learning, and especially learning new skills through case studies, so they can learn new knowledge, technical knowledge in working environment, and to get new ideas to try starting their own business. Attending training, professional or vocational training, was also seemed to be one of the needs they reported. This survey addressed other aspects as well. You can certainly read the survey yourself, but as I said, we will also have the final version published online. I'd like to particularly thank all the participants in this survey and all the organizers. Thank you very much. Nadia?
Thank you very much, Antela. Thanks for presenting this wealth of results of the survey in Albania. So now I would like to open the floor for questions from the participants. So I'm inviting everyone to use the chat for asking your questions, or not necessarily questions, but also comments on what you have heard up to now. Your reactions, maybe agreements or disagreements. So please, the floor is yours now. And maybe I will ask Antela to help me if there are any questions already in Albanian. Thank you. I see we have a question from Roman, from our colleague, who is the coordinator of ETF activities in Albania. So the question for Antela: what surprised you in the findings?
Thank you, Romain.
Okay, I will respond in Albanian. First, I was surprised by the desire that these organizations were contacted. They were really serious. They were really committed to give as accurate answers as possible in all the sections of the questionnaire. Now, for the findings, I can say that the resilience that the Albanian CSOs tried to find within themselves during this COVID time, as Andy mentioned, that Albania before COVID had also the earthquake problem, which brought a big change of the activities with which the CSOs were dealing with and with the services they were providing. So this adaptation and this desire to continue to work, although the pandemics did, let's say, bring down their normal way of bringing services and coming to a new reality, and the adaptation of these organizations with this new time, new era of response or organizing the activities by not interrupting their activities, by using the phone, the online communications with these groups that wanted to receive these vocational or professional training, formal or informal, from CSOs, was really to be admired and to be commended.
Thank you, Antela.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another question from Ersida Teliti. Which is the follow-up of this survey? One of the findings was that only one organization was part of regional organization. How would you reflect this challenge, problem? I think this is the question for maybe for both Entella and maybe ETF. So yeah, maybe we could start on this first part of the question. So what is the follow-up of the survey? A very important, interesting question. So what's next? Who would like to respond on that? Syria?
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, the purpose of the survey was really to collect evidence and to know more about the civil society, about their role and their actual contribution. So who they are, what they do in the field of human capital development, skills development, lifelong learning, support to employment. So this issue of knowledge built on evidence was very important. And in that sense, I'm speaking now as ETF, for us was a precondition to consider the hypothesis of any possible follow-up. So as such, for us, it is a great result. However, it's very fair to raise the question of the follow-up. First of all, we will continue the role of our European Union agency to build and to enrich more and more the policy dialogue. And as we say, the policy dialogue in lifelong learning implies that there is a multiplicity of actors involved. It's about the government, but also is about the non-governmental organization. So as a mediator of dialogue, we would like to continue and expand our role and say perhaps design or identify together with you and together with other stakeholders how can ETF interpret better this role of mediation. It will also depend on the, say, responses to the survey of the other countries as we try to find, to value common approaches. At the same time, we have also a couple of immediate steps. One is that at the end of June, there will be an international conference organized by European Training Foundation, and into this international conference, the last week of June, we would like also to bring the voice of civil society organization. We would like to give emphasis about the relevance of the role in building human capital, but not only building human capital per se, which already is very important, but also to put the role of civil society in context of the big changes that affect all of us. This has to do with the greening of the economy, the digitalization of the economy. This has to do also with the aging society due to the new current demographic trends and so on. So to also address big questions and bring civil society into the big picture in the light of this conference. More than that, of course, we will collect the results from all the countries, and the idea, again, is that this interaction between governmental and non-governmental actors becomes more and more meaningful.
Thank you, Syria.
This is not very concrete and precise, but this is, say, the line and the direction we would like to go.
Thank you, Syria. Thank you very much. And maybe now I would like to take the second part of the question on the issue of the CSOs being part of regional organizations. And I also see a question from my colleague Lida related to that. She's asking, is there any of the present civil society organizations who can inform what prevents them from joining the regional or European networks? Where do they see the issues? So,
Hello, may I speak, please?
Sure. Okay. I am Mercedes Tiliti. I would like to thank you for all the presentation and also Antela. And I'm the executive director of an NGO related to consumer issues, Albanian Consumer Center. And we have tried sometimes to be part of BEUC, with the organization in EU for consumer organization, and it's very difficult for us as Albania is not part of EU. But also we have tried, and the fee is so high for us, so that we can arrange and we can pay it. We have so tried to be part of Consumer International, and there is still the problem of the fee. Even though we are a consumer organization, I am talking for the organization that I'm the director, and the law on consumer protection provides that the state should give a small amount of financial for everyday issues for this organization. We do not have any, let's say, any financial support from the state. So this is one of the main challenges and one of the main problems, talking from consumer issues to be part of EU organizations or other international organizations. So it's very important for us to address this because as most of activities now, not only from the local donors, but also from EU needs the cooperations between member states and non-member states. So if you can address this problem, that would be great. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much. Orsida, would someone like to react to this question? Someone else? Maybe representatives from the agency for support of civil society would like to react?
Hello, yes, I would, it's Arian. I would suggest to actually use, I'm not sure if all civil society organizations in Albania are aware of the National Council of Civil Society. This council is actually has been established with the purpose to push to the government recommendations and suggestions regarding several issues that the civil society organizations might have. So, for example, the previous speaker mentioned that there is an issue with the law on consumer protection and the support that they receive from the respective agency. So if they can get in contact with the civil society representatives that we have in the council through our, I mean, the contact could be made through our agency and to raise the issue with the members of the council. This could be one tool they can use to put forward challenges and obstacles that there are. So I would suggest that you can contact us through we have our website, and in our website is also part of the platform is the National Council of Civil Society, where you can contact us there, and we can direct the questions to the members of the council. This is one way that I can propose right now, but also, you know, I understand that for many civil society organizations, it's a challenge to collaborate with different government agencies and to actually push them towards the resolving all kinds of issues that they might have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Erion. I also see that Eldisa Shebo would like to respond to Lida's question about CSOs being part of regional or European networks. So go ahead, Eldisa.
Okay, thank you. Now, in Albania, there are many NGOs or CSOs who are member of regional or European networks. We're talking here about the CSOs that provide the contribution to human capital development. In addition to what my previous colleague said, and it is also a finding of the survey, that the CSOs rely on donor support, and furthermore, they don't have, in particular, capacities of people in terms of communication. We saw a higher range of CSOs that in terms of staffing and financial and human resources, and also people to maintain communication at a higher level are low. In addition to that, non-formal learning and informal learning is something that is, and the services that CSO provide is something that is not capitalized from the Albanian stakeholders, particularly government. So, and maybe it needs another study of how much the government capitalizes in such a services. And it gives that very, very recently, in efforts to support return migrants, you see government and donors involving CSOs into the lifelong learning because of adult learning and the return migrants. It's a very recent activity, and is something that is not recognized. So many CSOs are neither certified or recognized for their specific contribution that they provide into non-formal and informal learning. So unless you are institutionalized and you are recognized at the country level, it's very difficult at the same time that you approach regional networks and European networks. Further to, like in many networks, we don't enter because Albania is not paying their fees at the government level, so that we benefit from being members of various networks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eldisa. Okay, so I'm looking at other questions, and I see another question from Hugo Musi. How can the response brought to the COVID-19 crisis by the CSOs be used as an opportunity to reflect on and to address the issue of resilience of lifelong learning systems? So how could the challenge brought about by the pandemic be taken as an opportunity? I think Entela would like to intervene on this.
Yes, I want to add on this something regarding from my discussion with the organizations. They, during 2020, they started a new way of working. They did not start it because they already were working through the digital and innovation systems, but they use it more during 2020. So they said that they were now experienced on how to organize this kind of new ways of communication, new ways of organizing training. So taking into account that previously they know that they really exist, but they were not using, like Google platforms, Zoom activities. Now, these new ways of approach on doing their activities can continue. No one can stop them on the future when the COVID-19 situation ends, to continue to work both using digital online tools, but also, as they said, in the classrooms or in the informal environment to organize training. So this experience of the COVID-19 situation have built their capacities for using this kind of approach in the way of they do trainings, they do informal learning, to use in the future. So it is easy because it came from an experience, so they know how to do it, and also they find them as very, very good in organizing such kind of trainings online, and they can be so for the participants who want to take part and they are busy, they can follow online courses, which before they know that maybe, but now it is a must. So yes, it's true that this can build their resilience, the resilience of CSO, to continue further even when we'll be back in a normal situation. So it is something that they have profit, like in difficult times, learn, implement new things and continue to use them afterwards.
Thank you very much, Entela. I would now like to give the floor to probably the last comment in this session from Matilda from RCDC. So please go ahead. And I think Matilda would like to intervene on the previous question related to the regional networks. So please go ahead. You can switch on your microphone.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's a pleasure to be here today as a member of CSO, and it's a pleasure to have contributed to the preparation of this important document. Thank you for involving us, Dela. We are one of those CSOs that have been involved into issues regarding lifelong learning for some years, I would say, not very substantially, but we have been in this particular domain, contributing to the best we can, trying to perhaps give you some reasons why our presence has not been in networks in particular, has not been perhaps that powerful. From our own experience, we would say that despite this very good cooperation we've had between us as NGOs, but also some very crucial institutions in this field, such as Navet Q, for instance, which we cooperate for some times now, either in terms of undertaking important surveys, or in particular with this particular institution, we've also been involved into curricula drafting and into standards of professions drafting, in particular with regards to tourism field. We believe that the participation in network has been, let me say, a call which we didn't kind of follow up because I guess our involvement in initiatives as well has not been sufficient. I would say that every one of us participates in networks for the purpose of contributing further and getting feedback, of this work. But apparently, so far the calls and the initiatives overall have been focused on governmental institutions only. And well, if I'm mistaken, please, I would ask from the colleagues of the CSO to correct me. But overall, we've seen that there has been a particular, let me say, focus on initiatives of be they national, regional, transnational, only with governmental institutions, only. So it more or less justifies the fact why we haven't been that active in the network. So it's not I wouldn't put it as a matter of contribution in with fees or fee kind contribution. Is not that. It's we as organizations do not we do not feel like we've been taken something very, very important from our resources if we pay a fee for what it's we are used to this culture now. We certainly understand the importance of participating in networks, definitely very important, but we need to see more involvement, and I guess my colleagues agree with that. It's definitely important to have partnership, governmental participation in partnerships, because, that is, I guess, the core institution to be involved. But of course, I don't think you can leave the CSOs so annexed in the whole process. So I think we are very important to them as they are to us. And when I say them, I don't want to create the distance, but I want to tell you that right now the CSOs are a very, very important, let me say, leg in the whole structure, in the body of, especially I'm talking about Albania. Well, I hope I'm understood and I've conveyed my message.
You are perfectly understood. Thank you very much, Matilda. It's an important message indeed. And I think we are touching now on very important issues, and messages are really coming out of this discussion. And we will have time to continue the discussions in the breakout rooms. So at the moment, I would like to suggest a 5-minute break to everyone. And after that, we have decided, because we have really warmed up very nicely now, and we would like to suggest a change after the break. So we will go ahead with the presentation of the cross-country analysis right after the break. So you will be able to see how Albania is positioned between the countries that have implemented the survey. And then after that presentation, we will break into 3 groups for group discussions. So now let's have a short 5-minute break, and let's be back at 12:45. Thanks very much. See you later.
Thank you.
Nadia, share my screen, and I share my screen, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, so I will need.
So colleagues, welcome back. So I'm passing the floor now to Stelios for presenting the cross-country overview.
Right. Good afternoon from my side. Indeed, a pleasure to be here today. Indeed, a pleasure to collaborate with experts and colleagues from Albania. And I will provide you a wider view when it comes to our findings. I will provide some insights on what we have found when it comes to this cross-country analysis from, as we said, Albania, Serbia, Jordan, Ukraine, Uzbekistan at the moment, and highlight some differences and get some insights and some views from you as well. Lots of the points I had for the beginning that have already been said by my colleagues and by Antela. The number of the countries that we have looked upon, the different dimensions. We can just highlight the last point here. The idea is to share findings with you, share potential lessons that we can highlight. As I said, it's a qualitative approach. More than 30 questions were included in the survey in 4 different areas. Again, very nicely presented by Antela. And today, we present a selective set of findings on Albania versus the rest of the countries. So without further ado, I'm just going to go straight away to these findings, and specifically to the first area. The first area has to do with the main characteristics and activities of your organization. This is where we see Albania when it comes to the goals of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN of the Agenda 2030. So if we focus on the 3 first left-hand side bars, we see that the CSOs in Albania are very much focused on good jobs and economic growth area, the gender equality area, the area number 5, the goal number 5, and reducing inequality. This is a quite high concentration, above 80%, almost for all 3 areas, very much in line with other countries like Jordan, like Serbia, not so much when it comes to Uzbekistan and when it comes to Ukraine. So bird's eye view, areas that the CSOs are focusing, are offering their services. Let's go to the next one, to our next finding. What do we see here? Here, we are focusing on beneficiaries and a specific type of beneficiaries, that is the vulnerable youth. This is where we see that the main beneficiaries of the CSOs in Albania are working by almost 78%. This is a quite a unique finding when it comes to the other countries examined. A quite high concentration. You see, it's the highest of the ones compared to the other countries. And it's something to keep for a discussion later. So vulnerable youth area of working when it comes to the Albanian CSOs. Jordan and Serbia is much less, as you can see by the red cycles. Technical competencies. Again, on the area that the CSOs are working at the moment, how do they see their activities and how are the ones provided? Quite high, by 75%, together with a 21%, very often I've been seeing that the technical competencies are the ones that are being offered. This is a quite high concentration again on the specific answer, on the technical competencies, and we're going to see on the same question a couple of more developments. The relationship with the authorities. The relationship with the authorities, again, on the content of your organization. When the CSOs in Albania were asked, we can see that there is a very often a quite reasonable concentration of the answers when it comes to relationship with authorities and public sector. So a tendency towards content organization activities when it comes to the public sector. This is a very interesting question that a number of answers found. It has to do with the effective learning environments according to the responses of the CSOs in Albania. A quite dense diagram, so I will guide you through it. With the blue color, we have the responses that the classroom, training center, or something similar is an effective way of providing effective learning environment. With the yellow dot, it's the on-the-job learning environment, and with this purple reddish, the online one. What do we get for Albania? That the CSOs believe that a very effective environment by almost 89% is the classroom, training center or similar. This is a high concentration when it comes to their responses. You see the other responses of the other countries are in the area of 60%. We can see on the more digital ones, the online is just a little bit less than 40, where on the job is just above 60. So high concentration, training happening in classroom, on training centers, quite high concentration always also on the job, and to a less extent on the digital online one. Second area of our analysis, pandemic effects. This is something we're really eager to see differences. Do we see similarities among the countries? So something that Entela also told us and presented just a little bit earlier. I'm also moving my English presentation at the time. During the pandemic, did the beneficiary groups change? I hope I have the correct one. No, it's this one I have to see. The short-term lessons learned. Has the organization learned short-term lessons? This is very important for us. By 96%, yes, short-term lessons are there. This is a really high percent if you can see it from the other countries. Jordan by almost 80, 87, 83, 78. So positive responses from all the countries, highest the responses from the side of Albania. Just to highlight next to it, the not change by around 75% presented by Entela when it comes to the change of beneficiaries, and a 25% of change. So around a quarter of the beneficiaries have changed, as we saw by our local expert. Third area of concentration of analysis when it comes to our survey, stakeholders and policy dialogue. Again, quite a lot of messages in this graph, so let's go through it together. We asked, is your organization involved in the dialogue regarding skills, strategies, and policies? So we have Albania here on the left. This 18 and 39% are actually responses of yes, regularly, and yes, occasionally. So that gives us overall almost 60%, just a little bit less than 60%. What is very interesting is the rest of this bar. That is a 43% that I am not indicating that I'm not, as a CSO, involved in the dialogue, but I'm willing to, I want to participate. This is not the picture as we have seen with other countries. There is a significant percentage in 3 of them, or 2 of them, on no, I'm not interested in any policy dialogue. And as a result, concluding this graph, we can say that there is a willingness, 100% willingness that of the CSOs in Albania to participate, and they either do it effectively and they do it dynamically at the moment, or they want to be part of it. The fourth area. Well, the fourth area has to do with the potential organization in the human capital development sector. Actually, we have 2 diagrams here because we wanted to compare and contrast 2 very similar but dissimilar at the same time questions. These questions have to do with the advantage of your organization when compared to other ones, with the difference of providing independent advice when it comes to the human capital development policies or innovative one. The answers can be major advantage, advantage or no advantage, and let's see where the Albanian and the rest of the country stand. Major advantage and advantage is being seen for independent advice by a really high number. This almost reaches 90%. This is the independent one. Major advantage and innovative at the same time, reaching 85–90% as well. So they are seen as an advantage, but not as a major one, as an advantage per se only. I added these 2 answers as being major advantage and advantage because you can see that the Albanian CSOs are overtaking on this perspective, and this perspective they have other CSOs from other countries. Only the results are not let's say so concentrated as the Albanian ones, with the exception maybe of Uzbekistan, that we have quite a big variation between the major advantage and no advantage at all. So yes, CSOs are seeing their contribution as being independent and innovative in the advices, quite important, and specifically with the rest of the countries. Moving to the next answer in a very similar question is the advantage again, but highlighting in improving the outcome of policy dialogue and public consultations. Well, here we see an interesting layout of the answers. The answers are giving us almost 45% on being a major advantage, 32 being an advantage, and 25 no advantage. So a tendency on the major advantage, a quite equally spread, let's call it maybe answer, and a dissimilar picture when it comes to the other countries. You see has an inverse trend when it comes to Uzbekistan, not seen as an advantage really, this contribution to the policy dialogue, and pretty much the same picture in Ukraine. In the same notion, the advantage of your organization, but emphasizing supporting effectiveness of education, training, and other learning processes. Major advantage, strong responses, and very clear message that the CSOs are there to support the effectiveness of education, training, and other learning processes. Strong messages also found in Jordan, to a less extent in Serbia, pretty similar picture in Ukraine and in Uzbekistan. And I think this question really highlights also the picture, the overall picture of the Albanian CSOs. So, wrapping everything up, just 1 second. 75. Yeah, this is the one we just saw. As I said, wrapping everything up. The CSOs in Albania focus on jobs and growth, gender inequality themes under the development goals thematology. They are mainly working on vulnerable youth for skills development through technical competencies, and strongly supporting classroom and similar environments as effective learning areas. We have some changes of the beneficiaries during the pandemic. Short-term lessons strongly learned according to the responses. CSOs involved or eager to be involved in policy dialogue, providing innovative advice to shape human capital development policies, and supporting, finally, effectiveness of education, training, and other learning processes. I hope we gave you a taste of some common trends or differences between the responses of CSOs in Albania and the other country studies. Looking forward for any of your questions and remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stelios. I think you have given even more food for thought now by bringing this cross-country perspective. So I think the group discussions come very timely now, and we will also have time for more questions after the group discussions. But now I'm inviting everyone to break into 3 rooms. Stelios, could you please stop sharing the presentation? Thanks.
I'll try, yes.
So each room will have a topic. These topics come from the survey. And we have also proposed some discussion questions to be addressed in these rooms. So I will just share the slide with the distribution between rooms. I hope you can see it now. So the discussions will be moderated. Each group will have a moderator, and we also suggest that each group, before starting the discussion, a rapporteur who will report the key points from the discussions back into the plenary. So each group will also have a shared Google document where the rapporteur can write notes. So our technical producer will now share the links to this Google documents, but this is just for moderator and for the rapporteur of each group. So let's now split into three groups, and each group will have 15 minutes to discuss, not much, but so let's go ahead with our group discussion. So I'm asking the technical producer to divide all participants between the rooms. Okay, I'm just asking our technical producer if everything is fine with everything's okay with breaking.
To separate the rooms.
Just some patience.
Maybe Nadia, will we find the doc in the rooms? Just to anticipate a bit where to take notes.
Yes, so the documents, the link to the Google documents need to be shared now in the chat. And then you can just click on the Google Doc to access.
Okay, because it seems that the producer need a few minutes to operate the separation. Maybe we can collect one or two questions to Stelios meantime.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, so colleagues, if you have any reactions or questions on the last presentation of Stelios on the cross-country analysis, we are opening the floor to your questions and comments. Any reactions so far?
Maybe I can ask Entel a question. We can go the other way around. Specifically with the training online and all the job training, this was a result that we found to be very strong and quite different from other countries. Would you consider it a result you expected to see? Or would you believe that we are lagging in effect? Maybe things have changed a lot in the past few months and still CSOs are adapting to this new environment. What's your feeling about it?
Yeah, as I remember from the data, the classroom and some kind of, because it's not a kind of classroom, but an environment where pupils or beneficiaries are gathered to learn and to get something from the trainings is found one of the most preferred ways. While the on-job training was the last one, less preferred, let's say. I think things will continue to change, but coming from a traditional way of thinking, of organizing the trainings, and being inside, maybe it's just a kind of reaction to the situation of COVID. So missing the time when they were in the classroom and saying,
interesting.
And but also I can say that a teacher can control, a mentor can control or can evaluate the learning process more when they have in the classroom. That's why they think that maybe classroom is better than online. But I think things are changing, because continuing this way, and this is a new reality, they have been, let's say, like a new way of doing the lessons or the informal training or the mentorship. But I don't think it was very big difference in the two others. Just the classroom was seen as the best. Maybe I think this was the reason, but also it gives importance to the process of learning the classroom. And I think our organization were coming from different, not only in Tirana, but also from other towns. And having access to the internet is also a point. So not always the persons have enough internet to use it, have enough tools like smartphones, computers to use it. And being this, the teachers or the trainers find this difficult to approach or to communicate with their target groups. That's why this also can brings reasons to the why they think that classroom or any kind of training settings is preferred compared to the digital one. But it was not it. Also, if we have in mind how the question was in the survey, what would you prefer? So it was not that you have this and just choose in a difficult situation, but what would you prefer? So if they have both, they can say that I want classroom or I want both. So that's why I think that we have this kind of result from Albania. But being on remote areas and also the access to the internet and the tools like computers, smartphones, which are needed for the digital communication, were some of the reasons why classroom and the direct training approach was preferred compared to these new methodologies.
No, absolutely right. We are in a transition period, so we can see it here as well. I can see the
breakout rooms are already. So if I join, I think I will leave this one. So bye, bye from here.
Bye-bye.
Good morning.
Do we know how many of us will be in this group?
Because actually I saw many persons leaving a bit early from the meeting, so I can give you the estimate from the registration.
Because it was about, gosh, we should be a little bit more, I think. Okay. I will open the Google Doc. Okay. So should we wait a little bit or start? What do you guys say? We could start, huh? Nobody else is joining.
Yes, I think there were 17 registered in this group.
Oh, we wait a little bit.
But
we'll just wait a little bit. See if anybody else joins. Well, it seems nobody else is joining. Let's get started. So good morning, everybody. I'm going to be the facilitator for this session. So I'm very happy to be in this group. So we have Matilda, Galina, who I know she's my colleague. Matilda, I haven't met you before. It's a pleasure. Hi, Ermina from ETF, and Diana Kanai, World Vision Albania, and Lindita Iseni.
From Youth Movement for Democracy to Puka in northern of Albania. I'm Lindita.
Great, thank you very much for joining. Okay, so the first step, I mean, you've seen the question. We're going to try to discuss and hopefully get some answers. I would propose that we decide who will be the rapporteur. It cannot be me because I'm facilitating. Who wants to have the honors of speaking in public afterwards? It will be really short and pleasant, I promise.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Diana.
You're welcome.
So
should I open the Google Doc?
Yeah, that would be great. If you're going to be reporting back, then it may as well be you taking the notes, because then you will understand them better when it's time to report back. And in fact, we may even consider to share you share your screen so that we have the notes on the screen for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how to do that? It's a little bit technical.
Just let me find.
There's like.
You see my screen now?
Yeah, perfect. That's
Okay,
excellent.
good.
Great. Clearly, you've been working with Zoom before.
Oh, yeah.
This would have taken me 45 minutes.
Definitely. The last year has been.
Yeah. I see we've got a newcomer, Ziri. Is that the name or the abbreviation of the organization? Sorry, I don't know if that's an Albanian name. Ziri, who are you? You want to say hello? Not yet? Okay. So, well, let's get started, huh? We have the questions in front of us in both languages. Although it was planned for this session to be mainly in English, but just, it makes it easier if we have both languages. So the first question is, what has worked and what hasn't in the past year, considering new activities and changes made during the COVID pandemic? So it's a very broad question. We could spend weeks discussing that, but let's make it pragmatic and also refer to our own experiences. So, for example, well, let's start with Diana. I mean, how has World Vision dealt with the pandemic? Have you had to change everything? I mean, you've changed the way you do things a lot.
Yes, mostly during the last year we have been obliged to change many things. I mean, many programs in terms of programming, what we do, and also in the way we operate and how we do things. So major shifts we have made to respond to the new situation. So what has worked for us as a World Vision is that we have been pretty much very agile to adapt to the new situation. So that's the first thing that I would say for our part.
Agile.
Yes.
Yeah. In the sense that you responded quickly to the need for change.
I mean, we just took about 1.5 weeks or 2 weeks to adapt our programs and our new operation models, and to set up new protocols for us internally. I mean, as a staff, while we were all at homes, and how we do have to react and to operate in the field, because we are an organization which works with beneficiaries in the field every day. So we had to adapt to this situation also.
And if I may, sorry, on the, because I want to understand this well. When you're talking about field level activities, like, can you give us an example of an activity that was conducted and how it would have been done before and how it's been done now?
Well, as part of our programs, for example, as World Vision, we work on daily basis with youth groups or with parent groups or with children in schools, which during the pandemic, we didn't have the opportunity to work with them directly, to gather them. So we had to adapt to the new ways. So what we did is that we proposed for children mostly, WhatsApp platforms, Zoom platform, or other technological and digital tools, which were quite easy for them to access. And for parents group, mostly our beneficiaries are from marginalized groups. So for them, it was really difficult to to use, for example, Zoom platform. So what we did is that we made small groups in WhatsApp, and we conducted our programs online. So this was one of the things that we did. So digitalization, I think that was the main the main word and the main theme of our
for everyone.
For
everyone, ourselves included. After 1 year, we're still working from home.
Yes.
You can see my plants behind. You can all hear my children screaming because my wife is dealing with them, luckily. But we're all home. And so, is there something that you would say has not worked? I guess I realize that's a harder question to answer.
Not worked.
Something that you thought, oh yeah, we'll have to adapt, we'll change the way we do that, and then you realize after some time that, well, actually, no, that's not going to fly.
It has been difficult, in fact. For example, one example that I can bring from the field is that we have really major problems with beneficiaries from very marginalized groups, or who did not have internet access or a smartphone or an iPad, etc. Even though we provided them with those tools, we provided them tools, and we had to provide them also knowledge on how to use these tools. And this was difficult. It was really difficult. It is still difficult because it slowed down the process, and it some of them are way forward, and some of them are left a little bit behind because you have to work with them in a different dimension. So this is one of the things that I can bring on. And also I know that even from our internal studies, we know that it has been a year full of difficulties for teachers also. Because we work on a daily basis with schools, with children and teachers. And we have seen that teachers also lack capacities in telecommunication, in digital skills and competences. So to some extent it has worked out, but I don't think that it's in the fullness of what is expected to be. So
no, totally understand. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that ETF has done some work on that last year, and that's one of the main findings, that teachers, as much as they may be super motivated with great incentives, in many cases they also need to become better at using all these new tools. Okay, well, that's a fascinating example. Thank you very much for sharing that. Time is flying. I propose we move on to another experience. Maybe Lindita, you wanna share what's happened last year, and I guess still happening now, in terms of how your organization has had to adapt. Lindita, you there? Okay, well, maybe she's got some technical issues. Let's try somebody else. Matilda, you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Right, great, super. Would you like to share with us briefly how your organization has adapted to the new norm, and what has worked really well that you're happy with, and what you're less happy with, things that basically did not work so well?
Well, obviously, more or less, we have behaved the same as anybody else, any organization, I would say, be it an NGO or profit organization. I guess everybody's is wearing that costume now. Well, of course, it hasn't been an easy switch or shift, but of course, we've tried to handle it, given the fact that we as organizations are and I guess I'm speaking about, all of us as NGOs around here are kind of more flexible in terms of, adapting with situations. It hasn't been easy, of course. We feel very sorry to not have taken all. This has been one of the negative impacts overall, in not just our daily activity, but in terms of, implementing our objectives and our activities to the maximum, or with the maximum efficiency required. We know that.
Sorry, just because we have very little time, I'm wondering whether you could give us a concrete example of one activity so that we really picture what you're talking about.
Overall, the workshops.
The workshops, okay.
We do deal a lot with them recently because most of our the projects that we have in hand for the moment are focused on tourism, regional development through tourism, and let me say, tourism and sustainable I would say sustainable following sustainability principles. One of them in particular involved training of young entrepreneurs, or also entrepreneurs from sparsely populated areas. The project was a Balkan-Med funded project, which also, aimed to involve people physically into training in particular, and of course that ended up, thoroughly conducted online, which went on well. But I must say that we are all aware of the differences that in terms of results should this particular activity had occurred on site.
So reduce quality, you'd say? The fact that you had to go online made your actions less effective.
We are all aware of that. We are all aware of that, especially when it comes to training, and when it comes to, in tourism in particular. And of course, in terms of, in subjects such as heritage training or place telling, storytelling, which that is a very crucial element, in order to make people, really go through the process and, how to say, experience the whole process. It's necessary to be there, to be in places, in particular. 10 geolocations we were covering in Tirana. It was not easy to do, but on the other side, there were elements in the projects which were finally, managed. Okay. In particular, certain studies and surveys we conducted were luckily done on one-to-one basis, and in particular, we had a sector skill survey which we implemented in the frames of this particular initiatives. I'm focusing on that because more or less the rest are.
Sorry, I must interrupt you now. We've only got 20 seconds left, so it's finished. This was really interesting. Thank you a lot for sharing. I'm going to need to contact you after this because you mentioned something which I'm really interested about professionally.
Yes,
the sector skills survey. We're really interested. See you in the plenary, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, that's weird. It says 0 and then we're still here.
Yes, what do we do? Do we switch somewhere else? Because
usually it's like
there was actually an option from the producer to keep us a bit longer, but I'm not sure now the decision.
Oh.
This was the only question we had for this.
No, if you scroll down, I think that there is another one.
Yeah,
there are some. Yes, I already went through
really
that.
Short.
Well, I'm trying to summarize it. all.
You're doing a great job. You're doing really well.
I'm really sorry, guys. I didn't manage to keep all the notes.
That's fine. It's fine.
That's
it's
okay.
good.
No, that's all right. We
You're gonna get 1 minute to present.
Okay.
So you've got all the keywords.
Yeah.
Do you agree on that? What I have written? Because I'm just going to read that, just to know.
I think.
No, you are doing well. Don't worry. It's all okay. You know, if further feedback is required, we may also respond on email. You know,
okay, please jump in if you feel that something is missing, please.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
Thank you.
Don't worry. You're going to rock on that.
Thank you.
So we have a few more minutes actually. We can.
Oh, we do.
Oh, really?
Okay,
Yes,
well,
yes.
in that case, I would love to hear Nela's opinion. Nela Quandran.
Yes, I am working in Vlora for Albanian Center for Population Development, an organization. We also have had our challenges in terms of organizing our activities with our target groups. While with civil society organization, we have switched to online training, workshop, and info sessions, which was much more easy because the majority of them know how to use the technology.
Okay.
We also have done a lot of trainings to train them how to use the different social platforms. But we also had another approach with another project which was targeting the vulnerable young people in order to prepare them with a set of trainings for employment. And we have done this on site because even though we had a plan B, we had bought some iPads for them in order to do this online, but we knew that the impact is much greater if we do it face-to-face, the activities. So anyway, it was a challenge because we have respected the protocol of Covet, using mask, and also we had bought a supply to make disinfection of the air for the spaces.
Ah, right. Okay. Okay. Those are costs.
Yeah, those are costs. Yeah.
And did you find that you were some of your beneficiaries were simply not able to access your trainings because they didn't have internet or no equipment?
We had some organization which we have collected them to the center, like 2 or 3 of them, and so we offered access to internet through our own devices.
Right. Okay.
It says that we are called back. We have like 40 seconds left now.
Okay. Great. Well, I think we did really well. We very briefly covered each of our experiences, and they meet. I think when I look at Diana's notes, you all had similar issues. It seems the problem of access, basically. Okay, great. Well, I'm sure the rest of the audience will be glad to hear what we found, and I thank you all for participating actively. Thank you, Matilda, and thank you, Nela.
Thank you for joining, and thanks also to the colleagues in your room who are listening to our conversation. I like that. So I read more. For example, I see there is I made a mistake before. I canceled one of the input. It was my mistake, but I hope I haven't canceled everything. And the question 2, we have okay, involvement in strategy and policy formulation shall not happen only in formalistic terms, like to tick the box. CSO are also involved in policy implementation. Yes, absolutely. And also it is important to have a large number of organizations involved in the process. Usually only few organizations are engaged and involved. This is making a very important, yes.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but we are now back all together in the plenary.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. So
maybe
I will ask the rapporteur then to just report in plenary.
Exactly. Yes. Thanks. So welcome back, colleagues. I realized the time was very short, but let's now hear from the rapporteurs of the three groups on what the key points of discussions were. So I'm now inviting the rapporteur of the first group that discussed experiences on human capital development in COVID-19 pandemic time, what worked and what failed. Could you please try to speak for maximum 1.5 minutes? At least try to do it. I know it's close to impossible.
Hello.
But yes, go ahead.
This is Diana, and I'm from the reporter for Group 1. Can I share my screen or?
Yes, you can share the notes.
Good, thank you. I hope you can see it. We had some wonderful discussions and conversation in our Group 1, and we had different perspective from our colleagues from CSOs. So I'm just summarizing the output of 2 questions in what we discussed, and we could manage to discuss about the main successes that we had seen during our 1.5 year, maybe 1 year of experience during COVID-19. So what we have seen is that we had all the organizations had the agility to adapt to the new reality, and all CSOs were flexible to adapt to the new situation with the new requirements and restrictions, etc. So we had to some very wonderful examples from our colleagues on that. Digitalization and getting used to the new tools was one of the main successes, but it is in the same time a challenge for some of us, because mostly our beneficiaries are from marginalized groups or those groups who do not have fully access in internet connection, and they do not have the technical skills and competences to deal with these new realities. And slowly I'm moving to the challenges also. For example, we have brought some good experience, some examples on that from our field work. For example, teachers and marginalized groups, as I said, struggle with technology, and some of the organizations which were present in the group discussion said that they were providing also the digital tools such as iPads, smartphones, or internet connection for beneficiaries, and at the same time they were offering also the competencies and the skills on how to use these tools. And we had also the experience of one of our colleagues, Matilda, who told us about the challenge of conducting some kind of activities which require physical presence, conducting them online, which risk or might be a risk to reduce the quality. And Matilda brought the example of heritage training and storytelling, etc., which require, in fact, the physical presence. Online training and info sessions have been conducted from our colleague in Vlora, I think, but sorry if I have not remembered it good. And she also told us on how their organization trained their beneficiaries on how to use the devices and platforms. And for the challenge of conducting face-to-face activities, which is the impact is missed a little bit. And for those who do not have the right equipment, some organizations provided also internet and devices for the beneficiaries, and some even hosted them in their 1 or 2 or 3 beneficiaries. They could join the online sessions from the organization office. So colleagues invited them in their office so they could attend the meeting. So hopefully I have told you everything.
Thank you very much, Diana. Thanks. So let's now move to group 2 that discussed the role of CSOs in public policies in human capital development. So I'm giving the floor to the rapporteur of group 2.
Hello, this is Elisa. I would like to make a summary of what we have discussed, and maybe I would like to add something on my own, because I joined the group because the team is very much at my heart. So we investigated the role of the CSOs on policy cycle regarding strategy formulation, policy design, implementation, monitoring and evaluation. And we found out that the monitoring and evaluation, as it is in line with the report, are where CSOs are more involved, while the willingness of CSOs to contribute to strategy and policy design remain CSO contribution. And while we see normally that the monitoring and evaluation would feed to policy design and strategy development, this is not something happening in our case, and NGOs and CSOs are less involved into strategy and policy design, although the laws are in place, and it shows the willingness of them to implement or the culture of the government to use the CSOs in these types of forums. In terms of the role that CSOs contribute, this is also in addition to monitoring and evaluation and data and independent advice that they provide. It's also with contribution with their knowledge acquired CSOs are involved in various state ACOs that are involved more in monitoring and evaluation, but also some CSOs are involved into policy implementation. And in terms of findings of the report, do you recognize yourself? I think the statement above reflects that involvement of CSOs reflects the status of involvement of CSOs that are less in policy cycle, as well as, and we had also some cases from local CSOs in North area that providing examples of what we call it advocacy activities and bringing data and watchdog efforts to holding the government accountable. On an overall note, however, I would have liked to see maybe because of the timing, the CSOs involved into policy dialogue during the COVID phase, and in particular, the CSOs on human capital development, because this is something that, in addition to health of the people and to economy, what is we're going to pay is the human capital development because of the COVID situation. And maybe a recommendation would be like a study of how the governments tap the role of the civil society into human capital development during the COVID crisis. And personally, I would say is zero, because it reflects maybe also in other countries the style of the democracy that we have and the style of the government that we have, being both parties in opposition or parties in the position, that it shows that the solution in the COVID crisis comes from the government and not from the population. And also the report that we have shows a lot of underlying efforts and unrecognized efforts that the civil, particularly into informal and non-formal learning, to keep people alive and not to lose their human capital. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Elisa. Let's move on now to the group from room number 3 that discussed the CSO's dialogue with institutional stakeholders and policymakers. So I'm inviting the rapporteur from that group.
Okay.
If you wish, you can share your screen
hello,
with notes.
From the group 3, we were not. Okay. So from the group 3, our first question is, how frequent is the dialogue between CSO and institutional stakeholders and policymakers? We were a small group, but still the answer to this question, also we were few, was from all of us, no, it is not so frequent. And when we asked the question why, is from our group, the answer was because the institutional stakeholder and policymakers do not see the civil society as a partner in the development. They engage the civil society organizations only when this is like a requirement or it's required by the internationals. And this is like a fact not only for the lifelong learning, but also this happens usually with the civil society organization in Albania. When we ask the second question, can you identify 3 successful outcomes of this dialogue and what works? Sorry. From our participants, it was that the dialogue with the civil society makes that the identification of the priorities is done well when the engagement with the civil society organization is well organized. Also, as a good experience or as a successful outcome from this dialogue are the activities on the volunteer, especially in the field of the non-formal education, which cannot be offered by other actors of the society. Also, a broad point of view in the civil society organization brings a wild point of view for the identification of the problems and how to find the ways to overcome the obstacles that are faced between civil society and the different stakeholders in this field. Another successful is that when civil society organization and institutional stakeholders work together, there is more effectivity in both endeavors, and also more focus is put on how to make the action, the activities in accordance with the both sides, like the civil society organization and the institutional stakeholders. Our third question is that, can you identify 2 or 3 less successful outcomes?
And Tela, sorry, just if you manage to conclude in 1 minute. Thanks.
Yes, so it is that
for 30 seconds, please.
36. So the organization work sometimes alone, not organized. They are the suggestion coming from CSOs are not heard from the institutional stakeholders, and the organization should work more on their force of argument in relation to the intervention that they should make. If our report, yes, these were like suggestions and also findings, these were part of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antela, and thank you to all the rapporteurs for synthesizing these important messages in just a few minutes. We have definitely run out of time, colleagues, but I think it really confirms that the issues that have been raised by the survey really need discussion and need further, reflections. So it is now 10 minutes to 2. We have actually, we have planned another open discussion slot in the agenda, but at this point, I don't think that we have much time for it. And I hope that we will be able to continue with the discussion, maybe online through the ETF Open Space platform and in other initiatives. And so now I would like to pass the floor to Siria Taurelli for wrapping up. Over to you, Siria.
Thank you very much, Nadia. I'm quite impressed about the type of input and the level of the discussion, and also the questions raised by all of you. Some of the questions are quite tough, and it will be really food for thought in ETF. I can say that I'm quite happy we decided to launch the survey, because it is a learning for us in ETF. We are much more aware about the type of organizations that contribute to non-formal and informal learning, to human capital development. And what we want to do next is that the same learning and the same understanding is also equally shared in the countries, not only by the organization themselves, because you know that, but also other stakeholders. Some of you asked before, what is ETF going to do next? Partly we know, partly we don't know, I have to admit, but for sure, one lesson I'm drawing for myself, at least, and I will discuss that with my colleagues later, is that there is a strong awareness on your part, on the part of the organization, that you are playing a role. I would like to say I heard also an awareness and understanding on the part of the deputy minister, so I take the freedom to extend this to the entire government. There is an awareness and understanding. But you have also pointed out that this is not enough. So there is a request, and there is a sense that the policy dialogue is running short somehow. It happens, but not enough. It happens at certain stage of the policy. During implementation, you are very active in advocacy. You are quite strong in collecting data and information for monitoring purposes. You are able to give independent advice on evaluation. You have a very crucial role when it goes to analyzing the effectiveness of the policies in an objective manner. So you are able to give a feedback at the stage of the evaluation. There is a sense that what is not happening enough is at the level of initiating new strategies and initiating new policies. And interestingly, some of you have also pointed out that there are various levels where this should happen. I heard that, of course, the national level is important, but also the subnational level. There is a level of local government where also dialogue is equally important. Dialogue is not only with ministries, but also with the department at a local government level. Now, what should happen in order to move ahead and to improve the situation and to make it in a way that the input of civil society is taken more into account? Partly this answer should come from yourself. Partly it can come from ETF, not because ETF can solve any problem. We are not technical assistants. We are not providing funds for new projects. What we can do is to say, perhaps activate our role as a facilitator between government and non-governmental organizations. ETF does similar type of role in what concerns the social partners, for example. If we take civil society at large, it is civil society organization, but also social partners, representatives of the economic sectors. So the landscape, the environment of lifelong learning is quite articulated. There are many players. What should change is that the civil society organization should be considered as one of these players. They should have a say. It means also to create space in the dialogue, to create a platform, to create formal fora where they are consulted. So it will not happen spontaneously. It requires putting in place dedicated mechanisms. For example, formal structured meetings every quarter or twice a year with a very precise agenda, an agenda that would then produce an action plan, and this action plan shall be followed up and monitored. So this is one aspect, I mean, putting in place a formal mechanism. Another aspect may have to do with organization. Some of the comments, one comment I picked in the group was, we are not enough. This is part also of the issue. There must be more coalition, more grouping, more alliances in order to be able to represent a critical mass and have the voice heard more loudly. The other issue could be also capacity. I mean, participating in policy dialogue, but it requires capacity of, being able to interact in terms of formulating policy objectives, formulating target indicators. So there is an aspect of being, part, but being conversant with the policymakers. This is not always easy, not only for you, for us, for researchers, for example. There is a big debate on how the language of civil society, of researchers or independent person can be formulated in a way that is really understood and conversant with the policymaker. The capacities is not only on the side of civil society, it's also on the side of the government, and I think ETF will be very clear on that. There is also an issue of being able to accept and to integrate and to understand also the critical views from non-governmental organizations. So this is just not really a summary, because the summary would be much longer, but just aspects for reflections on which ETF for sure will continue to reflect and to possibly provide a way ahead. We would like to remain in contact. We would like to also think of a form of networks. We don't have an answer yet, but this is one of the questions we are making to ourselves, how to create a network that continues to interact on these issues. For the time being, thank you very much. I'm very pleased that we got here. I want to thank Entela. She has done an amazing work due to her capacity, competence, expertise, but also, I would say, dedication. Thank you to the Ministry of Economy and Finance, to the national agency, and also to each and every civil society organization that has dedicated time for participating in our survey. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Siria. So at this point, we are closing our meeting today, but as Siria said, this is just the meeting that we are closing, but we will be in touch, and we are also thinking about a network. Please, I would just like to inform you that you will receive an evaluation form by email from our contractor, Tourist Albania. And we will ask you to fill it in with your feedback about the meeting. So at this point, thank you very much to all. Thank you also to the interpreters, and enormous thanks to the logistical and technical organizers of the meeting, Tourist Albania.
Thank you.
And thanks also to the ETF team.
Thank you too. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of them.
And please stay safe and healthy. And goodbye.
And goodbye. And like you, we also prefer in-presence interaction rather than video, but this is what we have. So till next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.